This
is Woodside Church Kids.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. My name is Matty and this is for the kids in Excite. Last week we looked at the story where Elijah taught Elisha and Elisha learned how to follow God. And at the end of our story, Elijah went to heaven and Elisha became God's main person who he spoke to people through. This week we are continuing on Elisha's story to see what he gets up to as he carries on travelling around in our two stories this week called Jars of Oil and A Room on the Roof. Our first story starts when one day a woman came to Elisha. She was worried. "I don't have the money I need to pay for everything I have. The man I owe is angry. He will take my 2 sons and he will make them work for him. What can I do?" Elisha asked, "What do you have at home?" "Only a little oil," she said. Elisha said, "Ask your neighbours for empty jars, then pour oil into each jar." The woman did what Elisha told her. She poured and poured. Still her oil did not run out. Her oil was not gone until she had finished all of the jars. She told Elisha, "All of the jars are full." Elisha said, "Go and sell the oil. Then take the money you get and pay back what you owe. You can keep the money that's left over." Now Elisha went to many places doing what God wanted. One day he went to Shunem. A rich woman lived there. She took Elisha to her house for dinner. From then on, when he was in Shunem, he ate at her house. They were good friends. "Let's make a room for Elisha on our roof," the woman told her husband. "We'll put a bed in it, we'll put a table and a chair and a lamp on it, and he can stay there whenever he comes to visit." So they made a room for Elisha. Now Elisha had a helper, and one day when Elisha was staying in Shunem, he asked his helper, "What can I do for this woman? She's made this room for me. She has no son," his helper said. So Elisha called the woman. "Next year," he said, "God will give you a baby boy." It happened just as Elisha had said. The next year she did have a baby boy, and she loved him very much. And that is the end of our stories. From our stories we learn that we can trust God. We can believe what God will do. Elisha trusted that God would give this woman, the first woman in our story, what she needed, all the oil, so she could get money to pay off the person she owed money to. And the woman also trusted God. She trusted what Elijah said because she knew that Elijah spoke for God. And she trusted by getting all these jars together and pouring her oil out. And sure enough, God made oil pour and pour out of those jars, and it never ran out until she finished all of them. In our second story, we learn that when we do kind things for people, God really likes it. God loves when we do kind things for people, and sometimes He gives us good gifts to say thank you for the kind things we've done. But we can't do kind things just because we think God's going to give us something. The lady didn't help Elijah by making him a room just so that Elijah would promise that God would give her a son. The lady did it because it was the right thing to do, and it was the kind thing to do, and God loved that. So to help us remember these stories, I've got 3 quick questions about some of the things that happened in those stories. My first question is, the woman in the first story poured and poured, but what was it that she was pouring? Well, if you said she was pouring oil, you would be right. This meant she could sell the oil so that the man wouldn't be angry with her anymore. In our second story, what kind thing did the woman do for Elisha? That's right. The woman made a room for Elisha because they were good friends, and it meant that he could stay over at her house. And what gift did God give to the woman for doing this kind thing? You are right once again. God gave her a son. because she'd done a good thing to help Elisha. And we learn from these two stories that we can trust God and that God loves that we do kind things for people. And that is the end of this week's stories. So in this week's Woodside Kids Weekly, I've put together some activities and crafts and a challenge that will try to help you remember the things we can learn from these stories. And if you have any photos or even videos of stuff you get up to, send them to my email and I'll try and put them in next week's videos so that all of your friends can see what you've been doing. So until next week, keep well, love each other and chat to Jesus. Bye!